If you are very drowsy or you are practicing sitting meditation, one of the approach can be you can quietly stand up and practice standing meditation until your mind become alert again, especially in this group setting. Yeah. Everybody would like to live a free and happy life, but not many people live in that way. What do you think is the reason? There may be many reasons, but in short, let's put in this way. They would like to live a very happy, liberated life, but in reality, why they could not live in that way is, first of all, they do not know the path. They think they know the path, but they do not know the exact path. Once in a week, I go to the YMCA in Greenbush to swim. I was member for 4 years. There is an entrance, and when I come out of the building, I used the same entrance. But I realized last month, there is an exit door that's far closer to the parking lot. But for the first time, 4 years, I realized that. Likewise, we actually do not know the exact path to eternal happiness. The second thing, even though we know the path, we do not actually walk on that path. Think about your bad habit, or think about your New Year resolution. There was one person who had a car accident. His vehicle was completely wrecked. And he was pulled out of his vehicle by the rescue team. He was not clearly conscious. So with his index finger, in order to know how much he was injured, he poked himself in all the parts of his body, and each and every corner of his body was very hurt. So he really panicked. So in the hospital, he told to the doctor that all his body was injured. It's in deep pain. After the doctor checked his body and said to him, "No, you are fine. You just got your finger broken." All our worries or concerns, anxieties can be very diverse, from the relational problem to financial worries, etc. But the root cause is in our mind, like the broken finger. Probably why I have some financial or more relational problem, whatever concern that is, it may be I'm not that diligent or trustworthy. Or it may be I still have the bad habit or same lifestyle that the people around ourselves dislike. Or if we have some concern and the worries are following us, our external condition, environment may be fine, but I'm just an anxious person. Just like my mother, she always worries about something. According to the statistic, people living in Vietnam, in South America, or even in Bangladesh lives far happier and contented life than people in Japan, in the United States, or Korea. Even though these developed countries are materially affluent, they do not have to worry about what to wear, what to eat, where to live, etc. That's why to live a very happy, contented, free life, we have to work with our mind. That is a so-called Buddhist practice. What is a Buddhist practice? It's a mind practice. I heard this story from one pastor. There was one young man who did not get along with his strict father. And he told to his father, for his coming birthday, he need a car. And he told that indirectly several times to his father. And on his birthday, he received some gift from his father. When he opened that, it was not car key, it was a Bible. So he was really mad and he threw down the Bible on the floor and he stormed out of the house. And he did not come back for the next several years. 5 years later, he was told by his mother that his father passed away, and in order to join the memorial service, he went to his home and looked around the belongings that his father left. And on the table, he discovered the Bible that he threw away. And when he opened the Bible, he saw a check and the letter that his father wrote for his birthday. The check was written several years ago on his birthday. It is the money for his car. So if we try to realize the happiness, would like to live a free, emancipated life without knowing our mind, without training our mind, without working with our mind, it's just like that young man who threw the Bible without knowing inside the Bible there is a check. Just like with that check, he could purchase the vehicle he wanted. With our empowered, focused, peaceful, compassionate mind, we can live a very contented and happy life, and as well our life would become very successful in many areas. So the Venerable DoSung, the third head Dharma master of Won Buddhism, said, there has been a lot of discoveries throughout the human history. What's the important discovery? Discovery of internet or YouTube is also a great discovery. Discovery of steam engine, electricity, and so on. He said, the biggest discovery is a discovery of a human mind by the Buddha. We all have a Buddha, we all know that, but Buddha clearly let us know what the mind is, how to train our mind. People train their dog, people try to discipline their children, but we need first to train our mind, discipline our mind. So Buddha said, without the training our mind, our life can become a miserable life. With the training our mind, our life would become wholesome. The founding master of Won Buddhism said, the study of any science has limits to its use. But if you learn how to make the mind function, this study can be utilized without a moment's interruption. Therefore, mind practice becomes the basis for all other studies. It sounds a little abstract, but it's very important. During the Shakyamuni Buddha's time, there were a lot of metaphysical or philosophical argument between philosophers or religious workers. Regarding that, Buddha told this analogy. There was a man who was shot by an arrow whose tip was poisonous. So his friend rushed to him, and one man said, what kind of a poison is this? The other friend said, who shot the arrow? And so on. Buddha asked to his students, what is the most urgent thing in that situation? What is the most urgent thing? Well,
I guess to find out poison.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Took out the arrow and neutralize the poison. That's an urgent thing. And the other things that we can think about later. All those philosophical, metaphysical argument is just like all those friends discussion. And he said, one thing and the only thing that the Buddha teaches, the human suffering and the way to end it. Buddha emphasized that repeatedly. So Buddhist path is the path to end suffering. In short, particularly the Four Noble Truths, it is the first teaching of the Buddha after he attained great enlightenment. It's the first teaching, and it is the most fundamental teaching. What is the first noble truth? Buddha said, life is suffering, life is dukkha. The second noble truth, if there is a suffering or dissatisfaction, there must be some reason. The cause of suffering is the second noble truth. The third noble truth is when we remove the cause, then there's a nirvana, which is the third noble truth. The fourth noble truth is how can we end suffering in a very practical way? Buddha suggested an eightfold path to cease suffering. This is the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. The first truth, life is dukkha. Dukkha is usually translated as a suffering in English, but it's a very broad concept. It's like dissatisfaction, unsatisfactoriness, insecurity, sense of lacking, incompleteness, etc. So it's a dissatisfactory aspect in our life. That is a so-called dukkha. For example, if you like your spouse, well, you have to live with our spouse. Whether you live with your boss or not, you have to work in that workplace. Or if your child is very wild, disobedient, or your boss is irrational, there is nothing you can do, etc. Yeah. The problem is all these types of dissatisfactory aspect in our life, unfortunately, it is inevitable. It is something that we cannot avoid. My mother was very close to my grandmother. When my grandmother passed away, she lived a pretty long life. My mother cried for 6 months, I saw that. Almost 1 year she cried. Or I was also close to my mother, but because of cancer, she passed away in her early 60s. In Korea, female's lifespan is very long. Someday, we will all lose something very precious to us. It can be our health, our career, our relationship, whatever thing. We will eventually lose that. Buddha said 8 kinds of dukkha, dissatisfactory aspect in our life. Birth is a suffering. Aging is a suffering. Illness is suffering. Death is suffering. Presence of object we hate is suffering. Separation from objects we love is suffering. Unattained aims is suffering. These are sufferings from the personal level. Think about the tragedies from the global perspective, all kinds of terrorist attack which happens these days. There are lots of sick people, or medical insurance. It's very pricey, and not many people get the benefit. But we spend, not just America, spend trillions of dollars for wars or buy weapons, etc. The list, the variety can be boundless. The Buddha said, if I collect all the tears that humans shed, it will form a vast ocean. So my teacher told me, we all live in the same nation. Do you know the nation's name? The Republic of Dukkha, the Republic of Suffering. Yeah. Sometimes some funny things, something that we enjoy, some enjoyable things happens in our life. But why Buddha said that life is dukkha in its nature? Good food, good relationship, there are many things that we enjoy. Why it is dukkha? Because it is not permanent. It's a changing. Flowers will wither, our good health will decline, etc. That's why Buddha said, anatam dukkham, which means impermanence is suffering. And the Buddha said, salam dukkham, all things are suffering. So, you know, the prominent Tibetan Buddhist non-American Dharma teacher, Pema Children, one day she told to her 14-year-old daughter, she taught the Four Noble Truths to help her to walk on the Dharma path. When she taught her the first Noble Truth, then her daughter shook her head and said to her mom, wow, it sounds like all religions depress all people. Life is a suffering, that kind of approach. But facing it face to face is, I think, very important. Otherwise, we can alleviate suffering. That's how we live. But why Buddha taught these things? Only when we face it, we realize that we can sever the root of suffering. We can be completely free from all suffering and distress. So anyway, when my mother was 58 years ago, we discovered a cancerous tumor in her colon. And the doctor said the cancerous tumor is almost in the terminal stage. And she cannot live more than 6 months. And it's very shocking news to our family. And nobody would like to tell what we hear to our mother. Not would like to play some bad guy role to tell that. So I told to my mother what I heard. Of course, I did not say, the doctor said you cannot live more than 6 months. I did not express in that. But I very candidly said, Mom, you may not live more than 1 year. But my mother was very grateful to my candid world. Why? Because she could prepare herself for many things, for her remaining years and for her next life. My mother was very devoted, one Buddhist. Do you know the problem? Who has a mental problem? One of their problem is they do not know they are mentally sick. Many people think they are okay. If they don't know they are mentally sick, they do not go to the doctor. They don't ask for help. That's a big problem. for the people who are mentally unstable. Buddha said he's a physician to cure the mind of the sentient beings. So in order to cure some disease, we have to know the cause of disease. That person is sick, first of all. So dukkha, dissatisfaction, might not be noble, but our perception of it can be noble, so that we can prepare ourselves to free from suffering. Many people are interested in Buddhist idea, Buddhist practice these days. But in order to put that into deep practice in their actual life, suffering or dissatisfaction in whatever forms has played a very important role to transform that person. Only when we encounter some difficult situation, when we are put in some challenging situation, we start to reflect our life in a more fundamental and serious way, and sometimes set our new life goal, etc. In that sense, suffering can be big blessing, actually, in the long run. Our third head Dharma master repeatedly told us there are always two bodhisattvas who help us. Bodhisattvas. One is the bodhisattva of a favorable condition. The other bodhisattva is the bodhisattva of adversity. Just like the trees grows in 4 seasons of winter. It's a very harsh weather, but without winter, our plants would become very weak. My mother was very good in raising orchid. Getting Asian orchid bloom is very hard. But my mother's secret was, during the winter time, put the orchid in the cold temperature for a couple of days. Then all the root stem would become very healthy. The same can be applied to our life. For the frog to jump forward, it first squats backwards. Think about when I was in regular college, just like other students, I really hate the examination. But in some subject, they gave the test several times in one semester, etc. But think about that. When you are in school, if there is no examination, which of course we all hate, how much did you study if there is no examination? The Saint Paul, the author of Romans, the Apostle Paul, he prayed to God, Lord, please remove the thorn in my flesh. He prayed for that many times. But the God's answer was always the same. It is better for you to live with that thorn. It depends on the person. What thorn really means, it can be literally the thorn itself, or it can be some agony in Nobody knows. So it is important to admit life is in its nature dissatisfaction, and it's a great chance to reflect our life. It can be a very important stepping stone for us to prosper, for us to move forward. What is the cause of suffering? The past ended. I will continue to talk. I would like to end this morning's talk with this story. There was a donkey in Texas. It walked with the owner, the farmer. It happened to fall inside a well, which was abandoned, which was very deep. And the farmer immediately called 911. And when the rescue team arrived there, they realized the well is too deep, too narrow to save that donkey. And probably, considering the depth of the well, the donkey had broken its back. So they decided just to bury that donkey. And the abandoned well itself is dangerous to many people. So they brought the shovels and put the dirt inside the wells. And the donkey realized what's going on there. And the donkey, when it felt lots of dirt on its back, it shook them off and it moved up. Some another dirt was on his back, he shook off and moved up again and again. The donkey finally got out of that well. Yeah. So there may be lots of difficult situation. Buddha's teaching, the first noble truth, life is a distraction, is not to depress people. It helps us to face the reality and to investigate the cause of suffering and how we can be free from that. So let's contemplate this during this retreat. Thank you.